Hello, lovely people of the internet, and welcome to a new Ark Survival Evolved video in the new and beautiful year of 2019. Happy New Year's to you guys. This is going to be recorded basically just after New Year's. We're going to be starting off the year with a bang, with a brand new, sort of highly edited at the beginning, very paced Ark Survival Evolved single player series where I'm going to be playing from the island to Scorched Earth to Aberration into Extinction. We're going to be doing all the single player content, all the achievements, everything is going to be covered in this one massive, long running single player series that I'm going to be hosting on my channel. Hopefully you guys are going to be excited to be seeing what's going to be going on in the series, and I welcome you all to this amazing bit of content. So allow me to take a second to get into how we're going to be sort of structuring this first beginning episode. I'm going to be talking a lot more in depth as to what we're going to be doing a bit later in the episode, when we're going to have a lot more downtime, when I'm going to speed up certain parts of the video. I don't want to leave out any gameplay at the beginning, because I want you guys to be able to see exactly what I'm doing, what I'm going to be skipping over, what you need to do at the beginning. So there's going to be a bit more explanation than in the later episodes that I'm going to be recording. So for this one, I'm going to take my time, I'm going to show you guys exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and hopefully you guys are going to be sort of understanding where I'm coming from when I'm doing certain things that I'll be doing in the game. I have a very different sort of gameplay flow to most people that I've seen post videos on Ark, and I definitely have some different opinions on sort of the game in general. So let's get into the opinions that I was talking about. Basically, when it comes to spawn points, I think honestly there's three locations that you should consider when it comes to spawning on the island. You have South Zone 1, which is a spawn point that is selected as the default when you create a new character, when you log into the game. If you're a brand new player that has never played this game before, I highly recommend that you pick South Zone 1. South Zone 1 is essentially the noob friendly, not very many aggressive dinosaurs or creatures spawning in that area. You have plenty of metal, thatch, wood, stone, anything that you would want to have access to. You have access to the ocean, so you have access to oil, have access to the creatures of the water if you really want to go down that route. But I would say that that's more for experienced players that really want to get into that earlier in the game. But anyway though, that is basically your default spawn location. I would say that it's a good one if you want to spawn there. No problems whatsoever. The region that I selected to spawn at is West Zone 3. Now, West Zone 3 is a bit more dangerous than South Zone 1. It has its advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, the advantage is that you're closer to the winter location, which is going to be something that is going to become slightly more relevant in towards the mid-game. And obviously, if you spawn at South Zone 1 and you want to make your way towards this winter area that I'm talking about, which is up north, right in that direction, you can see the snowy mountain next to Blue Obelisk. But anyway, if you want to go and spawn in that location, then obviously it would take you a lot longer to get there, which is obviously the downside, right? So this is why I've spawned here. It's still, I would say it's still peaceful enough that you can survive early on, because I'm going to be crossing over to the landmass that is basically that thin little island that's going parallel to the actual mainland of the island. There's not very many spawns on that island in general. There's a couple of turtles that swim over to it. You have some dodos, you have some Dilophosauruses. In case you don't know which one that is, that's the one from Jurassic Park that kills Nedry, the fat guy in the first Jurassic Park. So it's the one that opens up the frills and spits the poison. So you have that one, you have the dodos. You sometimes get some other things kind of like walking over to the area, but it's very infrequent. It's not really going to happen. And most of the things that walk over to that place are not very aggressive. So you should be fine. Honestly, I don't see myself having any problems. And if I do have any problems, by that point, I'll essentially have a bow, maybe a crossbow by that point. I'll be able to defend myself and take care of the threat. It's not going to be a problem. So it's not like it's going to wipe out my base like a T-Rex or anything like that. Now, I'm going to get into the third spawn location that is, I think, a really good spawn location, which is East Zone 1. Now, East Zone 1 is a bit more risky now than it used to be. It always used to have T-Rex spawns, but now with the TLC patch that came out in, I would want to say February or March of last year, it's going to be so weird saying last year from now on. But anyway, so last year when they released the TLC patch for the T-Rex, they added a lot of usability, utility to the dino by making him a lot more exploration. How they made it so that you can more easily walk over rocks, traverse the land, so it's easier to explore and walk around on the T-Rex. But that makes it so that wild T-Rexes are a much bigger pain in the ass because they are going to very easily scale up the cliffs in East Zone 1 and they are going to fuck you up. But the positives is that you're very close to a cave, you're very close to Herbivore Island, which has a lot of useful spawns, such as an Ankylosaurus, you have Stegos, Trikes, Theomias, you have Pterodons landing on the island very frequently, you have Brontos, you have a lot of good stuff, as well as metal spawns. And obviously above East Zone 1 into East Zone 2 and East Zone 3, you have the swamp. So you can tame up a frog, a Beezel Buffo, you can get cementing paste, you can do all sorts of good stuff. So I would say any of these three spots are going to be good spawn points. It just depends on your level of experience, your level of willingness to handle some more dicey situations that might show up, and obviously kind of where you want to go from where you build your first base, because the first base is always going to get abandoned at some point and you're going to move on to a much higher end game location at some point. Okay, so now we're going to continue on, taking a break from explaining all of that general stuff to saying why what I'm going to be doing here is very important. As you can see, I'm looking at the dodos, I'm seeing which one's a female, which one's a male. If there are any males, then I highly suggest that you kill them, because you don't need male dodos for anything at the beginning of the game. Granted, later into the game when you get into breeding, then you might be able to make an argument for I might want to tame up male dodos so that I can breed them with the female ones if they're high level, if they have decent stats. But it's dodos. The only thing the dodos are good for is giving you food, giving you eggs, so that you can make kibble a bit later into the game when we're getting towards the mid game. That's sort of when you're going to be starting to use the kibble. But as of right now, you kill the males, you get hide, you get meat. You want to have cooked meat so you can actually eat and survive. You want to have hide so you can start building beds, bows, weapons, all that good stuff. So male dodos are going to serve their purpose by being killed. Now, as you can see, I'm chasing the females. I'm deciding, you know what, I don't really care too much whichever one. So I start punching the 64 one and I will knock it out. Early into the game, it's fine to punch things to knock them out. Later on, you're not going to be doing that, even if it is an option. There's quite a few creatures in the game that you actually can knock out by punching them, but a lot of them will essentially punch back, and also you take damage when you punch them, so I wouldn't recommend that you do this anytime after you get access to the slingshot, the bow. Anything else is going to be preferable over punching, but at the beginning of the game, it's going to be fine. We're going to be punching that dodo out. Now we're going to be collecting some berries, because we need to put Medjo berries into its inventory so that it'll start eating them and be tamed. Now, obviously, I know probably a lot of you guys know this, but I'm going to point it out just in case some of you don't know this. Now you have Amar berries, Tinto berries, you have the, I forgot whatever the other one is, the blue ones. They are not as effective as Medjo berries when it comes to taming. Only Medjo berries are going to tame creatures at a, I would say, like a decent pace. You can give them the regular berries, the blue, red, and yellow ones, but they will not really have much of an effect. Medjo berries is really what they want. That's what you should give them. Obviously, the next tier up would be the crops that you can grow from a farm. So that would be rock carrots, you have potatoes, citrons. So you have essentially what's like lemons. I guess that's what they are. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So that's what I'm talking about. The next tier up is vegetables, farm, crops, whatever you want to call them. The next tier up would be, usually it kind of depends. It's not always the case, but it might be veggie cakes that you can make from a ton of ingredients. But the best thing, obviously, for any creature is going to be its preferred kibble. Some creatures don't have a kibble. For example, I know scorpions don't have a kibble. They just like spoiled meat. And then I think there's a couple of more that don't have a specific kibble attached to them, but most creatures will have a preferred kibble, and that's what you're going to use when it comes to taming them. Now, as you can see, this is where I start to speed up parts of the video because there's not really a lot of stuff that's going to be going on, except for gathering more resources, walking around, going to do a couple more things. Now, this is what I'm going to be saying, that this is the only thing that you have to worry about when you build here. You can obviously see a turtle swimming in the background, and this is where I'm going to be encountering a Dilophosaurus, a Dillo. I'll just call him Dillo from now on. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't really know what exactly is going to happen because this one that sort of walks by me decides to not really aggro onto me for whatever reason. It looks like it did at the beginning, but it just runs away the entire time. So I'm not really gonna complain. I'm just gonna go ahead and kill it because there is no downside to killing this thing. So boom, just knock it out quickly, get your spear back, and I instantly go back and I see because the other one's coming. If you attack something, the others in the area that are the same species are generally going to come to its aid. So if you attack a turtle, look around, make sure there's no other ones that might come and attack you because you might get overwhelmed and you might die. So if you want to avoid having that problem, I would just say honestly, look around, make sure that there's nothing bad happening, and then you should be fine. Now here I sit in place and I jump up, and apparently that is not enough to dodge that. If you move even slightly and jump at the same time, you will always avoid it. So take a lesson from my stupidity when I thought that I would get by just being lazy. Don't be lazy, move and jump at the same time, and you'll always avoid the Dilophosaurus spit attack. So moving on, this is going to be where I'm going to build my base, as far away from as many of the resources as possible. I'm building at the edge of the water, and this is where I'm going to be building the house. I also, at the beginning, would highly recommend that if you guys have a decent amount of flat space, that you guys build a bunch of thatch foundations and you start laying down a perimeter for the house. So it's essentially drawing up a plan saying this is how big I want the house to be, this is how big I want the courtyard to be, and just making different limitations in the ground, saying, kind of giving you an idea when you're going to start building and upgrading those to more higher cost resources, that you know what you can do, you know what your limits to building are, and you know that you can build within those limits. That's generally what I'll say when it comes to a big flat area like this one. Now when it comes to building on more bumpy terrain, I'll kind of maybe put out a separate building tutorial for that because there's multiple building techniques. Building at elevation on pillars, there's a ton of different methods to building on uneven terrain, but when it comes to a flat bit of land like this one, which is precisely why I picked this place to begin with, because there's essentially a huge amount of flat land that I can really go and build whatever I want to build on it, because it gives me a lot more freedom when it comes to placing foundations. So it's a lot cleaner than placing a ton of pillars and things like that. So that's going to be very, very good moving forward, and it's going to essentially help you plan where you want to build. That is entirely the reason why I'm recommending that you guys do exactly as I do in this episode, because you're going to make your life easier down the road. Okay, so now basically that we've covered the sort of basics of how you're going to be planning out your first build, let's get into some more general discussions on what you can expect from this series when it comes to the later episodes. Granted, this first episode is a bit more explanation heavy, it's a bit basic, you've probably seen it a bunch of times, but here's how the series is going to differ from what you've probably seen all over the place. This is essentially the closest thing to playing Ark that you're going to get. It's going to be getting all of the artifacts, all of the creatures. We're going to be taming everything. Each episode in the later parts is going to be its own taming video. So taming compies, taming anything that you can tame, we will tame. We will get all the dossiers, all the explorer notes, everything. When it comes to the island, we're going to do everything you possibly can. I'm not entirely sure if we're going to be doing the same thing when it comes to Scorched Earth and Aberration. I would want to say yes, but I'm not entirely sure the logistics of it yet. I know exactly what I need to do and how I need to do it when it comes to the island. I'm not entirely sure if Scorched Earth has the same level of polish that the island has now when it comes to single player campaign. I'm not sure if it has the final boss, aka I don't want to say it in case you guys don't know what the final boss of the island is, so I'm gonna leave it open. But I'm not sure if the Scorched Earth map has the same amount of bosses, I guess I should say. So I guess we'll have to see when we get to it. We definitely have a ton of work to do just when it comes to the island. There's a ton of things that are going to take a lot of effort to even tame. And then we're talking about preparing for the bosses, getting a ton of blueprints, materials, farming. There's going to be a lot of work that's going to go into this series. It's going to be a very long running series. Hopefully you guys don't mind that. Progress might be slow at the very beginning when it comes to, like, let's say the first 20 to 40 episodes. There's not going to be that much going on. There's going to be wow amazing, but after that, once we start getting a decent base, once we have a decent variety of tames already under our belt, then we can start worrying about stuff like, oh, maybe we want to go into caves, maybe we want to start breeding, maybe we want to start tackling some of the lower level bosses like the Gamma bosses, stuff like that. But that is going to be something that we're going to be worrying about when we get to it. As of right now, like I said, guys, this is somewhat of a faithful experience playing on low rates. I am one of these players that absolutely hates, I mean absolutely hates, bumping up the rates to the point where you can easily tame something in 1 second. This is not meant to be something that is going to take you 1 minute to complete. This is a task that you have to set aside time for, and you have to go ahead and do it. So, from my perspective, I like the grind, because the grind is part of the game, and the grind is actually fun. I know, right? It's shocking. Saying grind and fun in the same sentence doesn't make much sense to you guys, but trust me, when it comes to me and many other players in Ark Survival Evolved, we enjoy this game for what it is. Now, let me give you guys a bit of insight as to what I'm talking about. I have seen on many a comment section on the internet in general, when it comes to forums, when it comes to YouTube, I've seen a lot of people bash this game for being a buggy, slow, unoptimized piece of shit. And I want to say to those people, if you're watching this video, I want to let you guys know one simple thing. This video that you're watching right now has been recorded on a GTX 970. Can you honestly still say to my face that this game is an unoptimized piece of shit? Can you though? I have a 1070 Ti ready to be slapped into my PC, but I've not upgraded because I frankly just didn't have a reason to do it yet. Yes, I like the fact that I bought it. I am going to be putting it into my PC, but I didn't do it immediately because it's fine, honestly. Even this level of graphics card is going to get you some very nice performance and visual fidelity out of the game, as long as you know how to manage your settings. I am playing, like I said, on the 970, and I'm getting upwards of 100 FPS constantly. It's a consistent FPS. The lowest that it gets to is a 70 to mid 80 when you're in the base, when you're in a cave, when there's some more high octane moments going on screen. Yeah, it dips to 70, 80, but it is a 970. A 970, guys. It's not a 1080. It's not a 1080 Ti, and it's still doing phenomenally when it comes to performance. So to those people that act like the game has never changed since 2014, 2015 when the game got released, to those people I say, I don't like the way you lie, because it is a lie. The game has improved significantly since launch. They've implemented so many creatures into the game. They've added so many 10 to 11 care patches, balances, tweaks. The game has changed significantly, and it's more fun than it's ever been. I've always enjoyed Ark Survival Evolved since the beginning. I started playing Ark Survival Evolved on a GTX 320 on ultra low settings, essentially on 20 FPS. So trust me guys, I know what this game looks like at its worst, and I know what it looks like at its finest. I've played the whole gamut throughout the years, throughout the patches. I am very experienced when it comes to this game, And let me tell you that this game is a phenomenal gaming experience. So if you are somebody that has not picked up this game because you've heard somebody that you kind of trust or that has some influence that's been saying, oh, this game is not good, this game is a piece of shit, I would honestly recommend you guys that you disregard that and you try and form your own opinion on the game. If you buy it on Steam, you have a 2-hour window where you can easily form an opinion on the game for yourselves. But if you have been on the fence and you want to give this game a try, I wholeheartedly recommend that you guys give it a try. But before you do that, I would honestly recommend that you guys look on YouTube videos for optimizing the settings. Because if you don't optimize the settings, then yes, it is going to be a bit more iffy on performance. But if you know what to change in the settings and how to change it, I'm not talking about INI files or anything like that. Just launch options, launching it from the library instead of from on the desktop, and the game will run a lot better for you. Believe me. This game is amazing when you know how to make it amazing. I know I got a bit heated when it comes to talking about that kind of stuff, but it is something that genuinely upsets me. So let's get into talking about something that is a bit outside of the game itself when it comes to resources that you can access on the internet. There's two things that I would honestly recommend that you always have bookmarked on your browser. If it's Internet Explorer, if it's Firefox, if it's Chrome, whatever you want to use, doesn't matter. You should always have these two websites handy so you can always access them. The official Ark Wiki, so the wiki for Ark Survival, and then you should have Dododex. Dododex is honestly the most important thing that you could possibly have when it comes to the game itself. Because if you're playing the game with the same settings that I'm playing them as, so you disable single player settings, you're playing as if you're playing on a multiplayer server when it comes to the raids, the harvesting, everything else. So if you're playing like that, then you should easily be able to use Dododex to figure out the stats, figure out the amount of resources that you're going to need to knock something out, to tame it. It's a very handy tool. It's always up to date. There's plenty of feedback left on that when it comes to people giving you advice on what you should do to tame, to breed, to do a lot of things, including myself. I often post tips and tricks on the Dododex comments for several creatures. I don't remember exactly which ones I've given advice on. I think I've given advice on the Scorpion, I've given advice on the Moza, I've given advice on a couple of the ones, but essentially just go on there. You're going to get a lot of community feedback easily. There's going to be the ones that have voted up the most that you're genuinely going to want to pay attention to, because those are the ones that really give you good advice. Obviously the stat itself, the fact that you really get a visual feedback of, okay, this is how much I'm going to have to invest into taming this thing. It's going to be very useful for you to plan out what you're going to be doing, especially if you're not confident on just being improvising on the spot and taming something. That is going to be something that's extremely useful. Now let's also get into what I was talking about when it comes to the settings itself. I don't really recommend that you guys mess with the settings too much. The only real differences that I've done is that I've changed the day and night cycle speed down so that the daytime and the nighttime both last twice as long as they would normally, because it honestly makes for better videos. And in case that you do tame creatures that benefit from daylight or nighttime specifically, you have enough time to actually use them. And you don't really have to worry about too much for, I tame this thing, but it always sleeps during the daytime, and I've made daytime essentially 95% of the gameplay, so I've essentially tamed the useless creature. I've made it so that that's not an issue. Leave the the settings as balanced as possible, and you'll have a fun time. Now, the one thing that I will say is that as long as you bump them up slightly, you can bump up the harvesting and the sort of like the EXP, but the EXP I would keep it as base as possible, because this is a problem that I've noticed a lot of people can have, and then they blame it on the game. If you bump up the experience too much and you level up too fast, you're going to end up in a situation where you have too much technology to be able to keep up with it. So if you level up too fast and you get to higher tier engrams when you're still essentially in a low tier base, you're going to get frustrated because you're having to do so many things at once and you're not able to keep track of all of it. So do yourselves a favor when it comes to your own gaming experiences and keep the stats as balanced as possible. Granted, yes, I can put in the description of the video down below my settings, but I don't think it's really necessary. You can make up your own mind on what settings feel good to you. I'm just going to give you guys a few pointers on what you should probably avoid, because you might do something subconsciously and then blame it on the game because, oh, I'm not having fun. Well, here's what I'm saying. This can lead to problems, but you might not really be able to recognize what the problem is. So keep the rates as balanced as possible to what the game was intended to run on, and then you'll have a good time. Trust me on this one, guys. I know it might sound crazy, but just do it. Now, what I'm doing here is that I'm making two separate chests, which is what I usually do at the beginning of the game. I separate my high quality materials like my metal, my oil, my pearls from my common use things like my seeds, my stone, my charcoal, stuff that I'm going to be using to craft or to farm or to do things like that. So generally you want to keep as much stuff in a chest as possible. You don't want to be carrying around a ton of stuff on your person in case you die, in case you tame something and you want to jump on the back of it. If you have a ton of stuff in your inventory, you're not going to be able to do that. So it's just really, really good when it comes to user-friendly gameplay flow to just keep that in mind. Now this is my number one recommendation for you guys when it comes to the early game. Don't go out of your way to tame a trike. I honestly find them, even with the TLC patch that made them a lot better, I still don't find them worth using. And here's why. This guy right here, this parasaur, this is much better and it's much easier to tame. So just watch. Ebola, it can't move, and then slingshot 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think 5, 6, 7. Okay, so it was 7. 7 rocks to the face, and you can bowl them. Now let me give you some information on this. When it comes to a trike, they are classed as sort of like a medium big dino. You're not able to bowl them. Maybe it's because they have four big feet they walk on, and so you're not really able to bowl them. But essentially the problem is that you're gonna get knocked around a lot. It's gonna take a significantly higher amount of resources to be able to tame it to begin with, and it has pretty bad stamina, not that amazing carry weight for the size the animal is. It has reduced damage on its head, but that can be a disadvantage if you're trying to tame it, because you have to essentially attack it from an angle, you have to kite it around, you have to do a lot more effort to essentially get something that is, I find, to be inferior to the parasaur. The parasaur has what I would class as amazing stamina, especially for early game creatures. It has a decent amount of HP. It has usability when it comes to a multiplayer setting by it being able to alert you to other players' presence around your base. It has so many useful things. Also, if you're on the back of a parasaur and you decide to press the C button, it will use an alarm sort of attack that is going to scare off things like raptors, small predators like dillos. It doesn't work on anything that's too big, but for stuff in the early game, this thing is going to be amazing. You can also set it to automatically use that attack when you leave it alone in the base. So if something walks up to it and you're not there to defend it, it can still use that ability to make the thing go away. It's a very, very useful tame. I would highly recommend that you guys pick one of these up, no matter what you intend to do later on. If you absolutely want to get a trike, if you absolutely want to get a stego, that's fine. But you can honestly wait until you have a decent amount of stuff you have narcotics, you have a crossbow, you can knock out like a level 150, and then you can tame that one. But when it comes to a low level, very taming dinosaur that can also serve as a bit of a, you know, mobile storage box, this is the best option you have by far. By far. I don't care what anybody says when it comes to anything that you can find in starting zones. The Parasaur is highly, highly underrated by all the players that I've seen and that I know personally. It kind of gets into the same level of people talking badly about the Carnotaurus. I also think that is a really good one when it comes to the early game. I'm not going to get into that now because obviously it's not relevant to what we're doing in this episode. There's going to be a Carno that kind of shows up a bit later. I'm going to point it out by, you know, aiming at it with the bow and showing you guys. But this is why I suggested that you build in this area to begin with. You're going to be fine. It's not going to cross the water. They really don't do well in the water at all, and I will admit that. That is a flaw of the dinosaur, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be good in the water. It's really good on land. But like I said, I'm not going to get into that now. What I am going to get into is what I'm doing right here. This is a habit that you need to get into. And this is why I'm doing it. And this is why I'm showing you that you need to leave something on the ground to start tame it. What that essentially means is that you're waiting for the food requirement to get sufficiently low that you can place all of the food that it's going to want in its inventory and that it's going to eat it all at once, instead of having to eat one bite at a time or waste a lot of food that's going to spoil in its inventory while you're waiting for the timer to get down. What you're essentially doing is you don't put any food except for narcotics. Narcotics are fine, they don't count as food in its inventory even though it's eating them, but you're essentially using it to keep it knocked down. Now, as you can see, if you fire up Dododex and you put the stats of a level 12 Parasaur with 5 times taming on not on single player settings, so on normal settings, it's going to show you that it's going to tame out at level 17 and that it's going to take 8 bits of Medjool berries to tame it. So, like I said, very good resource. And as you can see, another habit that you should also get into doing whenever you tame something is go into its settings, put it on passive, change the follow distance to something that's appropriate to the size of the creature that you're having. Dodos can be on lowest. Parasaurs and things like that can be on low or medium, depends how big they are so they don't knock you around, and generally that should be fine. Now, as you can see, it has a decent amount of mobility, it can turn around rather easily. The trike has a very big turning radius when it comes to comparing it directly to the Parasaur. Yes, it gathers more berries per attack, but when it comes to stamina, when it comes to the carry weight, I just think the Parasaur is a much better package for how much effort you have to put into actually being able to tame it to begin with. So kind of trust me on this one, guys. I kind of know what I'm talking about when it comes to this game in general. I know what I'm saying might be weird because you might not be hearing this from very many other people, but give it a try. You might genuinely be surprised at how good this thing can actually be. I know it's gonna sound weird, but it actually works. It just works, to make a joke on Todd Howard again. But trust me on this one, it really is a very, very fun way of going about doing things in Ark. Take my recommendation. One time, if just one thing from this video you're gonna follow on, give the Parasaur a chance. You also get the skin that you can put on it that makes it look a lot more colorful. I have it in my inventory right there. It's just fun. Why not give it a try? If nothing else, you can easily put stuff in its inventory and it has a decent amount of weight, so you can use it as a fridge. If you don't want to use it for anything else, it's at least good for that. So give it a shot, guys. That's all I can say. And now this essentially brings us to the end of the video. And this is where I'm gonna, take a couple of minutes to kind of ask you guys to really, really try and interact with this series as much as possible. Especially if you took the time to get to this point in the video, you spent half an hour watching me play at the beginning, the beginning portion of the game. You've sort of listened to my points. Maybe you've agreed with some of them, maybe you disagreed with some of them. It doesn't really matter. Leave feedback in the comment section down below. I cannot stress how important your feedback is going to be to this series. Hopefully you will have a good time following. If you do really enjoy what you've seen so far, I would highly recommend that you guys smash that subscribe button and the like button on the video, because it's really going to help me out and it's going to get this video out to more people, which is, at the end of the day, the only reason why I'm putting out this series to begin with, is so that you guys can watch it. So with that said, that is pretty much going to be all the content in this video. Like I said, hopefully you did enjoy. If you have any feedback on stuff that you want to see me cover, if you have any questions, if you have anything like that, leave it in the comment section down below. If you have anything that you would want to maybe reach out to me on, you have my Twitter. You can always go on Twitter, tweet at me, DM me, whatever you want to do, guys. It's pretty much open-ended. I don't really, I'm trying to build a community of people that are like-minded and pretty nice, reasonable people. So hopefully you guys are going to be tagging along, like I said, and that is pretty much going to be almost everything in this video. You can see the Carno there in the distance. Like I said, it was going to show up towards the end, and it did show up. If it sticks around, I might decide to tame it. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do yet. Like I said, I'm pretty random when it comes to playing the game. I just do whatever comes to mind, and hopefully you guys are going to enjoy it as well when you come along with the series. I'm not going to say that it's going to be a daily, because I highly doubt I can do this every single day. It's a lot of work to get this video out, but hopefully you did enjoy. Hopefully you will enjoy the future videos and you'll stick around with me, like I said, and that is, as they say, going to be that. Thank you guys for watching. Bye bye, have a good day, see you later, guys.